Hi there, today we're going to tear down an Avalon miner version 821. It's provided to me by Canaan to do repairs. They know it's a faulty unit. When I tested it today, I had seen that there was 4 dead hash boards. After opening it up and replacing those, fired it up again, and we had 1 board showing dead out of the 4 replacements they sent me. So what we're going to do is take that 1 board, swap it to the other side of the unit on a different PMU board, and we are going to see if the board itself is dead or if we have another issue to track down. So we're going to get started here. I'll begin by tearing down and taking off the steel case. Then you're going to see we'll get to removing the fan and separating the hash board and heat sinks from the frame. Really breaks down nice and easy into essentially 2 main sections we'll be dealing with. So we will get started with the video. Should just lift right out. The next part here, we're going to remove the fan. This is just held on by 4 bolts. Okay, so that's the fan cover off. Now the fan will be able to just disconnect there and move on. Alright, so next what we're going to do is just take off the cable running for the fan to the back control board. Nice and easy. Now we can remove the back section of the frame, which will help us then take off the control board. Do this first, we're going to remove the hexagon grill, and that'll give us access to the 6 bolts that are holding on the back section of the frame. Okay, so here's the 6 bolts I was talking about here. There we go, that's the back part of the frame off. What you're not seeing is off camera, I've got a couple little sections just to separate all the little bolts. Makes it a little easier when you're going to put everything back together. So now what we're able to do here is we're able to remove the control unit. And this is the control board that connects to both sides here and feeds into the power management units for each of the hash boards and heatsink sections. What we're going to do now is remove the control unit, and then we will go to the front and take off the last piece of the frame holding the heatsinks hash board sections together. There's only 2 bolts here to remove. There's 1 and 1, and then they are each in turn connected down here. Pops out with just a little bit of force. go. Good. So you want to make sure as you're doing it nice and gentle, because you don't want to bend any of these pins here. You want to make sure that you're able to get them back in to seat correctly on each one of those power management units. So I'm just going to find a nice little safe place to tuck this off over here in the corner. Okay, so now we are down to the section where we're going to take off the front part of the frame like I was saying before. Now this back end here moves freely. It's just the frame that's holding it together, as I said. And then you don't have to remove this piece here. It's just 6 bolts right through, and you can take off the whole section at one go. Once I take this off, this back heatsink here will be free to go. And we want to be careful when you're handling these heat sinks, because those are machined metal surfaces, and at times they can be extremely sharp. We've separated this unit now into its 2 main components. You have your heat sinks here and hash boards. Not sure if you can make that out. See it much more clearly once it's all been removed, but that'll be one hash board and another. Actually, as the unit would sit this way, this top one would be 0, bottom 1, and on this side, they'll count upwards, 2 and 3, and that's how you identify them when you're going through your API log. I'm just going to take a moment here, so chop the video up a little. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take off the individual power management units, or PMUs, from each section, and then we are going to identify the hash board that seems to be acting up, swap it with another one to confirm if it is a hash board issue, or maybe there's an issue between the PMU and that hash board at its connection. So each PMU has 6 bolts. There we are. Again, you want to be careful not to bend all the pins here. I'm not sure if you can make those out, because again, they need to be able to reseat back in to make their connection here. Looking at them on this, everything appears to be okay. So we're once again going to seat it down over here out of the way. Slide this over till we're ready to do the heatsink and hash board removal on each of them at the same time. And we can just pop one off, set it aside, move the other one over. So for now, we're going to move over to the second PMU. We're going to inspect this one a little better. Again, all pins look good. Can't see anything out of the ordinary that would indicate that this was the issue, but you never know. So we're going to again move forward, and start taking off the hash boards. So what I'm going to be doing, like I said before, we're actually going to be swapping what would be the 2 top hash boards per each side. This one being number 3, this one being 0, as 3 has been reading dead in the API log. And if you ever get lost, it's easy to identify by this bolt connection here. That indicates the top, because that is where your control units seat. So to remove the heatsink, it is 6 bolts down the middle, larger bolts with shaft end and spring loaded, and then 3 bolts on each hash board. So we'll do that right now. You'll see here, nothing else holding it down. The thermal paste does make it stick a little. Give it a little shift. Pop right off. Just lay that down up here so not interfere. And I'll give you a first shot of the hash board. That's what your board looks like. That's the chips. You can see the thermal paste on each chip, and that's what connects with the heatsink, ensuring a nice good thermal transfer. Tuck these away, and then we're going to remove the 3 bolts for the hash board. As simple as that. It will feel a little tougher because this whole thing has a nice little suction from the heat thermal paste there underneath. So you're just going to shift it, come off nice and easy. Again, I don't see anything that stands out, shows that it could be faulty. This was a new unit just installed yesterday. So we're going to test it out, and maybe it leads us to a different issue in the miner itself. Now, reseating these is as simple as trying to line up bolts as best you can and dropping it into place. There you go. Too much adjustment. Holes are lined up. I'm going to cinch them in there nice and slow. Make sure that you're not putting any undue stress on the board. Line your heatsink up again, and in case you're going to do it backwards, you got this little notched out section up here. Makes way for that component on the board there. Again, you're just lining it up with the bolt holes best you can. You'll seat it in there nice and slow. Tighten things down. Before we tighten that up, we're going to put this hash board in place now. So you've just seen what you would do for 2 hash board replacements, or even just for your troubleshooting to figure out if you got a bad board, bad PMU, or some other connection. And it's no different for any of the ones you would be doing. You could swap whatever board with whatever position to test it, as long as you know that you're testing against a good hash board. That helps you narrow down what the point of failure is. Okay, so we've successfully swapped the hash boards. We are going to reinstall the PMUs on each side, control board, slap everything back together, and try and test her out. See if we've either proven hash board or if we need to open it back up and try and do a PMU replacement. Okay, now we're going to get back to installing the PMUs. We'll start over here. So remember, have the 4 and 2. 4 connecting here, 2 up there. Now you don't want to just line up the holes, you want to feel it start to go in, because remember, you're making those connections at the base, and those are all those pins. These ones we're talking about keeping straight, so make sure you have those lined up before you start tightening everything in. And it looks like we are okay, so we're going to start tightening. Again, just make sure everything's nice and snug. Don't want to over tighten anything, but definitely don't want it just sitting there loose, rattling around inside your miner when you're all said and done. That section is all back together and be ready to go once get the control board ready. So reinstall this unit here using the same idea. Alright, now we're ready to put the control board back in place. Again, this is where it was key that we did not damage any of the pins as they came out. You need to line those all back up. Again, it's one of those things where if you're lined up with the receiving ends for those pins, or also the bolts for the receiving end, it will go in with just a little bit of force, but you want to double check and make sure, because bending one of those and you're pretty much game over on that. Alright, everything's back together. I'm going to get power supply and everything hooked up, give it one test tonight, and maybe I'll be back to change out the PMU or maybe the hashboard proves to be faulty if it jumps over to another section in the miner where we placed it. Thanks for joining me.